The ultimate definition of discipline means putting a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem. What do you mean by that?
That's a great question. So I have realized that a lot of people, when they think of discipline, so if anybody listening to this, you just close your eyes and what do you think of discipline? You think of like some Viking-looking dude jumping into a frozen over lake, and he gets into the ice and he's like, "Rah," and that's you can find that on Instagram every single day. Is that discipline? Well, if your biggest problem in your life is that your relationship is on the rocks and you're out cold plunging and working out twice a day and avoiding having the real tough conversation with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, then you're procrastinating on something. And that's not discipline, no matter how many hard things you do. Everybody's doing hard things these days. Well, that's great that you can do hard things. Anybody can do hard things, but can you do the hardest thing of all? And that's work on your level 10 problem. And whether that is you have a porn addiction, or whether you have an alcohol addiction, or whether you just watch too much Netflix and you sleep in, and so you wake up and you delay your hopes and dreams, like that's your level 10 problem. And if you're not giving that a level 10 effort, then you're not disciplined. Everything else is just entertainment. And a lot of times the phrase that I use is the perverse form of procrastination. Like working out is good, but doing triathlons while avoiding the hard conversations with your business partner or with your wife or whatever, that's undisciplined. So you're doing a hard thing at the expense of the great thing. You're doing a good thing and sacrificing the great thing, and that's not discipline. So that's why we came up with this new definition, which when we explain it to people, they have a hard time arguing with it.
Yeah, because I remember when your philosophy before as well, and I'm sure it is just to get into the thing that matters most first.
Yeah.
Right? Like instead of dicking around with other stuff and procrastinating, and it's because then you can spend 3 or 4 hours doing stuff that you think is moving the needle, but really by the time you get to it, you don't have that energy, you don't have that drive, and you kind of you're
And you
delaying
have
the process.
and you have everybody else's problems that have accumulated have now entered your world, and all the emails that people have sent, and it's very difficult to stay out of their inbox, or to stop, not look at their WhatsApp or their text messages as the day goes on. But early in the day, you generally can, and that's why we teach the planning and preparation the day before. Let your mind work on the problem overnight. You wake up, you go as quickly as possible. It might be within, for me, it's within 10 minutes. For some people, it might be within the first hour and a half of their day. They sit down, no distractions. They do have the greatest discipline, willpower, and intention, according to scientific research, early in the day, and that gets depleted over the course of the day. That's why you can't really do anything great at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon if you've been up since 7, because your willpower and discipline has been depleted. Unless you have amazing systems, it's hard. So getting after it, using that little process is what I've been teaching for years. And that is where you have to attack that level 10 problem. And when you do that, even if your level 10 problem seems like an insurmountable problem, or it seems like, man, it's going to be so hard to turn this ship around. Maybe it's a business that's struggling, a relationship that's struggling, or maybe, man, I'm 75, 100 pounds overweight. Like there's no hope for me. You're not going to see massive results overnight. But if you keep on attacking your level 10 problem early in the day, you will see results. The thing is that it's so much easier to try something new, to bounce from diet to diet, or to start a new challenge, or, if you have a podcast and it's struggling, you think, oh, maybe I'll just go and I'll start an e-com business, or I'll start a YouTube channel. It's easy to start something, but that's not your real problem. And so it's harder to see the results in the level 10 problems. But if you keep going at it, and that's what really matters, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, there's that point of when the motivation wears off, right? It's like and people, I see this a lot too, and I've seen it for years with people starting new businesses and rebranding. It's like you get to that place, and then all of that excitement kind of goes away, and
Yep.
you don't have the results, or you don't have the thing that you thought was going to happen. So then you think, oh, well, I just need to stop this and do something completely different rather than just like getting through that spot. Cause that's a tough spot sometimes to be in, right?
So we were talking just before we started about, you've lived on the west coast of Canada, and I've been to Victoria once, and I was working with the Canadian rugby team, and I went out there, and I went out with another guy, and we were roommates at this hotel in Victoria before we were going to Shawnigan Lake up for this training session. And I knew he had been married for a long time. And so I think I said, hey, this is like 2004. So I didn't have a laptop or anything. I'm like, can I check my email on your computer? And he had left the browser open for like one of those dating sites. And so I knew his marriage, he had been married for a while. I didn't know his marriage was in trouble, but his marriage was his level 10 problem. And he was flirting online because that was the easier thing to do. And he was easier for him to go and put like a level 5 effort into a level 2 problem, which is like, flirting online was not, even a problem for him. He shouldn't have been there. But you got those dopamine hits, and it's easy. Like, oh, set up a profile. That's easier than sitting down with your wife of 15 years and saying, hey, listen, things are, there's no spark in the marriage. And it's like, that's hard. And so it's just human nature to take the path of least resistance in everything. It's always human nature to take the path of least resistance. And whether it's starting a new workout program when you need to stick with the one you're on, whatever it is, or stick to the course of business. I do see a lot of people starting podcasts when they have a hard business problem in their main business. And it's like, I'll just go and start a podcast because, again, you get that immediate reward. Oh, I put up my first episode. I feel good. Well, yeah, you feel good, but the 800-pound elephant in the room is still here. In fact, he's 850 pounds now, and it's even worse. And we gotta attack that thing. Otherwise, it's going to destroy you.
Well, how does somebody get past that feeling of like, it's not working? Like, when does somebody know when it's actually time to pivot, or if it's just to keep going? Like you get all this feedback and it's like, okay, I put in the effort, let's say they have put level 10 effort into it, to a level 10
first
problem.
Question. That's the first question we got to ask.
Okay.
Is, have we put the level 10 effort in? And it's a good question. I've never been asked this question before. And it's a challenging question. The second thing you have to do is you have to realize you're not the only person with all the answers. And this is where you have to get the outside eyes. You have to either go to a coach or a mentor. You have to go to someone who's been there and done that and achieved what you want to achieve. Because if you go to somebody who's a couple of steps behind you and you say, I've done this, I've tried really hard, I think this is it, they're not going to have any ideas for you. And they're going to say, yeah, you got to pivot. You're asking the wrong person. You got to go and find somebody who has gone through the struggle, as close as possible to the one that you're going through right now. And whether they're, just somebody who gives you their time, or whether it's, you have to invest in a call with them, or if you have to go to one of their seminars, you have to say, hey, listen, I feel like I've given a level 10 effort to this problem. And whether it's your business, or whether it's relationships, or whether it's health, or whatever, you go to somebody who's beyond you, because they're going to be able to tell you whether or not you're giving a true level 10 effort. They're going to be able to say, like, okay, listen, you've chosen the right path, but I'm looking at what you're doing here, and you have to do more. You just simply have to do more. Or they're going to look at it and go, you're working really hard here, but you're actually just a few degrees off course. Let me help you move over here and give you some advice, and then put your level 10 effort into this strategy, and you will have the breakthrough. So that's the second thing you have to do, because again, we might, and well, not just might, but in most cases, we don't have all the answers, and we need to go and get the mastermind going with other smart people who can identify the solution. So that's, first of all, that's on the business side. I got a real strong view on marriage. So, and I keep coming back to like the personal side of things, because the definition applies to both personal and professional. And when I see people in marriages, Like you just, there is no, like, have I given enough? Like you just keep going. Like you've made this commitment on day one. Here are the vows. Here's what I'm going to do. And provided you've not been abused or, you're not in harm or whatever, but it's just a matter of like, we got to get this spark going again. Like you just keep going and you got to turn over every rock. When I had my anxiety attacks, it's going on 20 years next year. So this New Year's Day, so 2026, will be 20 years since I had my first anxiety attack. And when I had that, you have this feeling where you'd be like, I'll do anything to get rid of this. And so I tried all this stuff, yoga, tai chi, meditation, qigong. I didn't like any of it, but it all helped, and it was all very valuable. But I would have been willing to try another 20 modalities to have gotten rid of that, because there's never a point in that path where you just say, I'm giving up. You have to just try something else. And so if the core goal is never going to change, you can pivot to another strategy, but you never give up on that thing. And then in some cases, if you have given the level 10 effort and you've gone to somebody and gotten expert advice and they say, well, you're doing everything. And then it's just a matter of you making a hard decision of how long am I willing to keep going on this? And at what point do I say the sunk costs are not worth it anymore? Like a lot of people keep going on things that they shouldn't go on because I've already put a lot of time into this. So therefore I don't want to give up on it. But in some cases you should. And there is no black and white hard rule on it, but you just have to get a lot of outside eyes and expertise and then make the judgment call.
Yeah, that's great advice. What about if somebody, because you talk about, we go on social media and we see these different things people are doing and we think we have to do them. But what about when it comes to actually going after what we should be going after, or, like a purposeful life? And like, a lot of times our lives are a projection of whether our parents tell us to do something, or our friends, or the social media gurus, or whoever. And then we take that and then we pursue that, but it's not actually in alignment with what we should be doing. So how does somebody figure that out? If, let's say, they're on a path and then they start to realize that no matter how hard they push, this may not be the thing. This may actually be something that has been a whole projection of someone else's vision onto you. And how does somebody really get clear on what they should be doing? Like, what is that mission? What is that purpose? How do we figure what that is the truest way to us?
That is a super important thing to consider, because just as a bit of backing up, like when people think of discipline, they think of doing hard things. And if you go and do hard things in the wrong direction, like if you're in California and you start sprinting west to get to New York, you're in trouble. You like, doesn't matter how fast you run, doesn't matter how hard you run, doesn't matter how hard you want to work. I can go the lazy way and go east, and I'm going to beat you. And so if you don't know your orientation, if you don't have that right, man, that can just put you so far behind the 8 ball that it's hard to get out of it. So we have to step back. And a lot of people say hard things is suffering and exercise, and they love to do those things because they want to avoid the hardest work of all, which is thinking with no inputs, no audiobooks, no podcasts. Like you just sit there and you got to think and figure yourself out. There's a reason why so many people are so lost these days, is because they don't do that. And again, it is not fun for most people. It's really fun for me, but it's not fun for most people, because it's one of my strengths is visionary, futuristic thinking. That's actually, like, according to the Clifton Strength Finders, I'm really good at those things, and I like doing it, and I like doing it for other people. And so the 3 steps that I would take somebody through is I would first help them find their big why. What is like at the core value, the core purpose of what you want to achieve in life, why you do all the things that you do. For me, I'm a family guy, so everything is for my family. There's some people, like the guy who started Tom's Shoes, right? you understand what Tom Shoe's mission is all about is you buy a pair of shoes, we're going to give him a pair of shoes to a kid, underprivileged kid in Africa. That's a really powerful why. And therefore, you can run every decision through that filter of, does it move us towards our big why in this company of, serving all these kids and, also being a profitable company? If yes, then let's do it. If no, then we won't, move on that thing and we'll avoid it. And it's the same with me. Like if somebody says, one of my old college buddies comes and says, hey, let's go to Vegas for a bachelor party, I can easily go, that's way out of line with my big why and reason in life. So I'm gonna have to say, no, I love you guys, but I'm not going. And so that's the first step. The second step is getting a very clear vision for your future. And I've talked about this in all my previous books because it's so important. And the vision for your future is, in 3 years from now, you tell me right now, from the future, you tell me where you're living, who you're living with, what your family situation is, what cars are in the driveway, what country you're living in. You're living in around the world. I'm living here in Vancouver. I know where I want to be. You know where you want to be. What's your day look like? What's your week look like? What's your workout look like? What's your health and fitness look like? And you write all that down and then you tell it to me, and I can close my eyes and I can watch the movie and I can see what would serve you and what would not serve you in life. And again, it's a very easy filter for making decisions about what to pursue. Because if somebody listening to this says, well, I want to be living, in Mexico, I want to be living a life of freedom, I want to be in a great relationship with somebody, and I want to have a business that's a lifestyle business that helps me make, $200,000 a year, but I don't want to work more than 30 hours a week. And I'm okay if I don't have a car. It doesn't really mean anything to me. I'm going to be living in the central, part of the town anyways. Okay, great. I mean, everybody who's listening to that could kind of picture in their mind very much what that would look like. And therefore, they could, anybody listening to that could, if I said, well, that person who wants to live in Mexico, what do you think about hosting seminars in America? You'll make like another 200 grand. You'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go back to America and host seminars. It sounds horrible. Too many flights and all that extra work. And so it's easy to run the filter.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing I would ask somebody is, short term, what's your specific definition of success? So around a major goal or around a major life change. And people often come to me and say, Craig, I want to be more disciplined. But that's not a specific answer. That is a general term. Like more discipline to Lance might be, using your phone less than 2 hours a day. Maybe you're like, oh man, I'm starting to use my phone too much. I want to be more disciplined. I want to use my phone less. To another person, it might be like, man, I'm drinking 2 or 3 glasses of wine per night. It's really affecting me. I need to have more discipline and stop drinking Monday through Thursday. So more discipline, they both of you can use that phrase, but they mean totally different things. So let's get very specific on what you want to achieve. And now, once you answer those 3 questions for yourself or for me, it's easy to figure out what the next steps are in life, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And then that's where the discipline to say no comes in. And what we do is we teach people to create parameters and checklists so that it reduces the decision fatigue. Just like, Steve Jobs was famous, always wore the black turtleneck and jeans because that was one less decision for him to make in life. And he could put all his energy into making bigger decisions. And that's what we're trying to do with our lives, is reduce the amount of decisions we have to make by going, let me think about that. Because we already have a million other things to think about. And if we have a set standard for the things that are baseline, we won't have to think about them. We're going to stay on the straight line to success, and we're going to stay out of trouble. We're going to live life according to our terms. And that's one of the underlying messages of the book that I hopefully got through to people, is that success is really about running your own race in life, being comfortable in your own skin, and being able to stick to that. And through a little bit of self-reflection and introspection, you figure yourself out. And then even though, this is what you see on Instagram and this is what the trends are, if they're not for you, you don't follow them. And then you're just going to live a more peaceful and stress-free and successful life on your own terms,
what do you say to somebody that, let's say you're working with, or somebody comes to you and they have all that framework, but then they just procrastinate, like they just don't get it done, like they just don't, for whatever reason, they have the plan, they have the, in theory, the roadmap, but they just don't do it, and they're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next step for somebody like that? Because there's a lot of people out there that, I mean, I've seen it in my own life. There's been
Sure.
times where it's like I have this thing and I'm like, well, why didn't I do that? If I know that that's going to bring this, why wouldn't I do that? Right?
Yeah, humans are so funny, man. Like, we have these stupid human tricks of procrastination and so many other things. Fortunately, there's a very simple solution. And the solution is as simple as why you and I are on this call right now. Because I made a promise to you and you made a promise to me. And we don't want to let each other down. And that's simply it. It's the accountability. So if you have something that you want to do, and like you said, it happened to you, and hey, listen, it's happened to me. I'm not perfect. I mean, the reason I was able to write the book on becoming more disciplined was I lived the book. Every bad habit you had, I've had it and I've overcome it. And I've gone too far with discipline, which is why I realized it was a bad thing, and with too much discipline, and how to come back to it. And I procrastinated on things too. Even on the book, there were days I wanted to procrastinate, but I didn't, because I had told all of my coaching clients, you're going to get a rough draft of this book by March 16th. So I started writing on January 1st of 2024. And like on January 3rd, every Saturday, I send an email out to my coaching clients. And I said, I'm starting a new book. You will have a rough draft by March 16th of 2024, because I knew that I could write about 500 words a day. And that would get me about, I didn't want to write more than 25,000 words for this book. It was actually 26 that it ended up being. But, 25,000 words, is about 50 days or whatever. And I knew that I could do it. But there were days I didn't want to do it. And there were days I didn't get much done. But I got the project done because I made that promise to people I deeply did not want to disappoint. Because if that day came and went, and now some of them would have forgotten about it, but some of them wouldn't. And if that day came and went and 10 people emailed me and said, hey, hello, where's that book you promised me? I'm going to feel like a hypocrite. And that's one of the worst feelings that you can have, is being a hypocrite. Especially if you're a person of integrity, you will not be a hypocrite. So to your question, the best thing that anybody can do when they have a plan, when they have a goal, is you have to share it with someone you deeply do not want to disappoint, or share it publicly with enough people that you don't want to disappoint. And so it could be as little as one person. Like, there are some people in my life that I will promise them to do something. Like this guy, Bedros Koulian, he and I have done a lot of business together. He's a great guy, very successful dude. And if I tell him I'm going to jump this high by Saturday, I'm going to jump this high by Friday and beat everything I said, because I don't want to disappoint him. Now, on the flip side, if you don't have that one person, you get it through the community. So you might be in a Facebook group, you might have your own community, you might be in a school group, you might be in a WhatsApp group, you might be in a Slack group with people who you respect. And when you say, all right, I've wanted to, make this course. I've wanted to write this book, and I'm going to get it done. I'm going to at least do it every day, because, for somebody who's never written a book before, you'll probably say something that's crazy way too early, because it takes a lot longer. But you can at least say, I want to write for 30 minutes every day, and I'm going to check in, Monday through Friday. I'm going to send a message to the group and say at 5:00 every day and say, did I get my 30 minutes of writing done? And every single day you're going to show up and you're going to do it. And so, I'm not a big fan of online challenges and stuff, but that is the one thing, well, not the one thing, but one of the few things that they get right, is they have a community, and you check in with the community every day, and you promise to do a certain thing, whether it's 100 push-ups in 100 days, you check in and say, did I do my 100 push-ups? Yes or no? And if you say no, then the group's going to let you know about it. And that is really valuable. So that is actually, it's the missing link, the secret ingredient to why people to how people can finally get stuff done. It really is powerful.
The power of accountability, for sure.
Man, it's changed my life in so many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you think about it, like, as you know, when you're coaching somebody, I mean, you can't do it for them. They have to do it themselves, and then, you know, you hold them accountable, and they have to want to do it, because you know, at the end of the day, you can't force them to, but they have to see that within themselves, and they don't want to let you down, right? And it's like, it's so important to have accountability. So important. It's such a great point that it's easy to forget sometimes, right? It's
Because
easy to
it
forget.
is very simple. It is very simple. And
Yeah.
I know there will be some people out there who say, you know, I don't have this community. I only hang around negative people, because there are some people in certain situations where they're, you know, maybe they've just entered this world of personal development. And the cool thing is there are a lot of online communities out there that, and research shows that an online community is just as powerful as an in-person connection. So, you know, with a little bit of searching around, you'll find either a Facebook group or, you know, a school community or whatever it is, where they will accept you and you'll be able to say, I need accountability on this. And people love to hold other people to accountable. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get into the talk about addictions. Because I think addictions, I mean, going through your book and talking, like, specifically around, I know you've talked about this on other shows too, but I think it's so important about, like, the porn addiction and just these addictive behaviors that take us away from, like, the things that we need to do, right? And
Yeah.
walk us through a little bit about, let's just go dig right into the porn addiction right away, because it's kind of the elephant in the room, and so many men, women too, it's just not talked about enough. People just aren't honest with themselves enough. Speak to us about that, the problem, and how can somebody listening today break this habit, and same fundamentals that they can use for other poor habits as well.
Yeah. So the system that we teach for anybody to start getting rid of any bad habit, whether it's porn, binge drinking, you know, binge watching television, it comes down to elimination, preparation, and connection. And so with pornography, you know, I make a case in the book that it's not a kind of a victimless crime. Like, people think, oh, I'm just watching pornography, whatever. You know, it's not like the alcohol industry is not a great industry either, but it is a regulated legal industry. And, you know, there might be some small crimes committed somewhere along the line, but in pornography, like, you're talking about sex trafficking. You're talking about every time you use pornography, you are supporting financially an industry where there's nobody's good in this industry. And, you know, women get into it for the wrong reasons. Men are in it for the wrong reasons. There is a lot of criminal activity. And then, you know, kids see it and start to mimic it, and it ruins relationships and ruins intimacy and marriages. And it, you know, my wife and I were talking about it today, because she doesn't really know that people, she's like, people really, like, because she was reading my book for the first time actually, and she's like, is porn really that bad of a problem? And I said, yeah, I get a lot of messages about it. And it is for young men, because it totally warps your view of sexuality. And so I'm not a big fan of it, obviously. Now, how does one get rid of it? And so elimination is the first step. Just like when I was a binge drinker, I used the elimination I eliminated alcohol from my house. So for pornography, you need to eliminate access to it from your phone and your computer. And there are apps like the Opal app, so OPAL, works on your phone and you can prevent yourself from going to certain websites. There are plenty of you know, adult blocker websites that parents have for their children, so that, you know, they can't, if there's a family computer, you can set something up so it prevents anybody from getting access to a XXX website. There's plenty of softwares that exist right now. And yes, you can work around them, but at least start with that. So eliminate, just like when I was a binge drinker, I eliminated alcohol from the house. The
Mm.
next thing you need to do is eliminate the toxic temptations. And this is, me being in bars, and this is, porn is a slippery slope. You start out on Instagram, you're looking at some workout videos. All of a sudden, you're looking at a girl doing hip thrusts, and the next thing you know, you're like, I'm going off to, the pornography. It's like a slippery slope. It all started very instant, but you need to then make sure that your Instagram is curated to not have that trigger for you. Just like for me, I obviously stopped going to bars. I stopped going to sporting events on Saturday afternoons with my friends until I could get a control over my alcohol, which then it's probably like a year later, I started going back to the events and just not drinking. And then the other thing is, you have people that tempt you into bad behavior. So I had friends that I'm pretty sure still go to the same bars that we went to when we were 25. They're 50 years old and going to the same bars. And I had to, cut those people from my life because I knew that there was no hope of changing them. And they were only going to hold me back. So I cut those people. And then the other people who were still friends of mine who I really wanted to spend time with, but I didn't want to drink with, I just started doing events like hiking or golfing on Saturday morning or going to the gym or doing something during the week with people who didn't drink during the week. Okay, great. So now I still have those relationships with good people. I don't have to cut everybody out of my life. I'm not a big fan of internet people who say you got to cut everybody out of your life that, not doing the same sort of thing with you. And so now on the porn side, it's like whoever sends you links or encourages your pornography use, those people have to get a timeout. And maybe after you go through and you build these systems and you get yourself away from it being habitual to hardly being ever. And then maybe it's like you've been not doing it for a long time. Then you change your identity. And this is probably the greatest thing that I think James Clear introduced us to in Atomic Habits was the power of shifting your identity. Because you can rely on these systems, but eventually a system can break down. But if you become a person who does not look at pornography, so if you're an honorable man, a family man who does not look at pornography, that's me, so that's how I look at myself. I'm also a non-drinker. I gave up drinking years ago and I don't drink even socially now. So I'm a non-drinker. I just don't drink. I just don't use pornography. I just don't swear. These are the things I just don't do. That's not the type of person I am. And now we're back to, that decision fatigue. I don't have any decision fatigue. I don't go to a bar. Actually, I just went to Whistler the other week near Vancouver here. And I walked into this restaurant and it had the most amazing bar I have ever seen in my life. It had so much alcohol and it was beautiful. It was a really nice restaurant. And if I had been in there 5 years ago, I for sure would have had a drink. And then I would have slept poorly and the next day would have been kind of crappy. But I just looked and went, well, I'm not a drinker. So, I'll just have, a glass of water or whatever with dinner. It didn't take any energy or discipline or willpower out of me. Just like you can eventually get to the point where with pornography, I just don't use that. I don't like it. I'm just not the type of person who uses it. And you can get there and you can shift your identity to that. And, but it helps to have those systems to build you up, to like prove to yourself that you don't use it. But eventually you can get to that point. And now it's a non-issue and you can be around people. I don't encourage you to be around people that try and drag you down, but you could be around people who try to drag you down and you wouldn't be dragged down. And that goes for every habit that you could possibly think of. You can get control of it through the systems, and then you can conquer it through changing your identity.
Yeah, addictions are so interesting because, I've talked to people, even clients I've working with now, and it's just like there's like almost 2 points of when people want to use. It's like when they're feeling down, they want that thing, but then also they get to a point where it's like they're rewarding themselves and it's like a justification for the hard work, and they can like play this like mental gymnastics with themselves to justify the thing. It's really
Humans
interesting.
are great at that.
It's really interesting
humans
to
are really
see,
great.
like how these addictive behaviors happen. And you're right, like how can we make it impossible to, like, if we get these urges, like, how do we take it completely out and then put something in that's like more like a better habit, like a better thing or a better cue or a better trigger, you know?
Yeah. And
And
so that's just a matter of, you know, is rewiring your nervous system. And with the elimination, what you're trying to do is you're trying to put as much friction up in between you and the bad habit. So, you know, imagine you had a potato chip addiction, and it's like, okay, well, I got potato chips out of the house, but you know, you live next door to a 7-Eleven. Well, okay, there's not enough friction. You know, you got to move away from the 7-Eleven. You got to make it so you have to climb, you know, go uphill 3 miles in a snowstorm to get the potato chips, and that'll stop you. You know, so there's so much friction in the way. And then with the good habit of, instead of potato chips, I'm going to eat an apple. You need to have apples everywhere in your house. So, and visible. And this is research proven. You know, there's some nutrition research that just shows if you put the apples and the fruit out, if you put the apples in the and fruit at eye level in the fridge, what you see is what you're going to do. So you have to use these tricks and go to extreme levels to break the cycle at first. And then as you build confidence, you can start to believe in yourself. So in most cases, this is not an overnight thing. In some cases, I have helped some friends, like they've heard me talk about, you know, no pornography. And because they looked up to me and didn't want to disappoint me, I've got people who sent me messages that says, hey, when I heard that, I was like, I'm quitting. And they quit overnight.
the
And
way you put it
sometimes
in the book too, it makes you feel like, fuck, I'm not that kind of guy. I don't want to do that. Like the way you worded it in the book, I bet you had people be like, oh, I'm not doing that again. I'm a family man. Like,
yeah.
I don't do that.
That,
Like, and it makes you think like, yeah, I don't want to do
that's
that.
what, you know, it was 15 years ago. Somebody said that to me. And it was about strip clubs. He goes, I just don't do that. That's not the type of man that I am. And I was like, and I looked up to this guy like a big brother. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And there's no reason why I'm not like that too. And it was a really big shift in me because what was I trying to, I always knew I was trying to accomplish the family man thing in life. And I was like, this is not in alignment with that end goal. So there's clearly a dangerous detour in my life and I need to shift out of it. And again, you know, it's like, it wasn't a perfect execution, you know, because I was in the internet marketing industry and you go to Vegas for conferences and stuff and you do some stupid things once in a while when you're young. But it was way less often than I had done it when I was, you know, like a college kid. And I just started feeling so much better about myself and building the confidence, which allowed me to make those changes in many areas of my life and eventually become the person that I needed to become to attract my wife into my life and get to where I am now. So for some people, and I will say one more thing is that if somebody has an alcohol addiction, you do need to go and get professional help. I'm not saying just read my book and, you know, your 5-year alcoholism will come to an end. I'm not going to make that claim, but the systems will help you for sure. In addition to, you know, 12-step in Alcoholics Anonymous, it's accountability, really. You know, it really is a third part of the discipline systems. But for people who have an annoying habit in their life, they know that it's dragging them down. And they know that every time they do it, it actually hurts their confidence. Just like hitting the snooze button in the morning hurts your confidence because you made a promise to yourself last night to get up on time and you broke that promise first thing in the morning. And that's a bummer of a way to start the day. So the more often you can use the systems to avoid the bad habit, it strengthens your identity and it's the virtuous cycle. You want to get out of the vicious cycle and into the virtuous cycle. And when you can do that, you can really shift your life in so many powerful and positive ways.
Yeah. I got one more question about one more thing that I think before we look at wrap it up here. And that's like a personal question for you with your phone. So, because, you know, we have these devices, right? We all have them. Everything has become one thing. We got our cameras.
Yeah.
You know, we got content makers, we got emails, we got this, we got that. And I'm sure over the years, since when you started in this world, things have shifted, where now it's like you're expected to have this thing all the time, and that's probably shifted a lot for when you started, right? So I'm curious as to you personally, how do you navigate the situation with your phone and being like, okay, I got to use these apps. I got a book coming out. I got to promote. I got to be on my email, but I also need family time. I need to disconnect. Like, where is the line for people? Because I personally have to delete Instagram, Facebook for certain times where I'm like, I can't have that on my phone because I'm going to
Sure.
look at it. Right.
Hmm.
So what does that look like for you? And what could you say to people that struggle at that?
Yeah. So I am probably older than most people listening to the show. So I came, I grew up with no phone until I was 25 years old, right? I think I got might have had my first cell phone when I was 25. Yeah. I called it a cell phone. So obviously I'm an older person, and I don't have a lot of apps on my phone. And I fight tooth and nail when somebody tries to put another app on my phone, like my gym. They want me to check in with their phone. No, I won't
Mm.
do it. It's annoying for me. It's annoying for them. I have to go and I have to ask for a keypad every single time I go to the gym. Nobody, they don't want to give it to me. I don't want to do it, but I'm not putting your app on my phone. And so I fight really hard against all that, so that all the apps I have on my phone could fit on the home screen. you know that's it. And it's
Mm.
crept up every year. It creeps like one or two more, and it annoys me, but I try and avoid having them there. I don't have email on my phone. I've never put email on my phone. I had, years ago,
Really?
I had BlackBerry. Yeah, like in 2010 or 11, I had a BlackBerry with email on my phone, and the next BlackBerry I got, I didn't allow the email to come to my phone. And so I don't access Gmail on my phone. So I just have to be in my front of a computer to email. And I try and lose my phone in my house every day. I try and go, like, I haven't seen my phone in a while. Then I know it's a good day. I used to go to the gym without my phone, but then my wife said, "Hey, listen, in case I need you to do something, can you please take your phone to the gym?" So I just work really hard on not taking it. And this is after me being always with my phone. So in like 2019, 2020, I was doing a lot on Instagram, like a lot of business on Instagram, and I was on my phone a lot. And, it was fun. It was great. I was making money being on my phone. And then I met my wife, and I was like, okay, I can't be on my phone as much now because, she will not like it. She wants me to pay attention to her when we're having dinner. And so that's when I started really trying to figure out, how can I automate some of these things? How can I delegate some of these things? How can I eliminate some of these apps from my phone and the usage of my phone? And so I try and be technologically as stupid as possible, so that I don't know how to use a video editing thing. So therefore it doesn't go on my phone. I don't know how to use
Mm.
it. So, I can film the video and I can send it to you, but I cannot do anything else with it. And so the less I know about using technology, the less I am hooked into using technology.
Mm.
And I try and read books manually, although with we have really young kids, and eventually you'll get trapped under a kid who's sleeping on you, and you're like, I don't want to get up because I don't want to wake the kid. I work so hard to get this baby to sleep. So I've been reading a lot on my phone now, but I try and do old things as old school as possible. Paper and pen, um, you know, thinking that way, reading real books. I try and do it. It doesn't always work. And then I just, I don't really watch YouTube. I don't use Spotify. I don't use any apps, music apps on my phone. I just didn't get into it. And I'm fine with it. And I'm a little strange compared to most people. So I don't listen to music when I go to the gym. Like, I go to the gym and everybody's 3 minutes of texting in between every set, or, it's like they're trying to find the perfect song. It's like, just get on with your workout, man. They're in there probably three times
Mm.
as long as I am. And so I just tried to avoid it as much as possible. And of course it sucks you in. But then when I'm around the kids, or at certain times of the day, it's put away, and you just
Mm.
physically have to remove yourself from the phone. And I don't leave the house with it. If I go out with my wife, she's got her phone, I'd leave mine at home, so that I'm not
Mm.
tempted to do anything with it, because Even, you could, for every guy out there, you could be out with your girl, and you could have your phone put away for 3 hours, and the only time she's going to notice that you're on, that she or she's even going to pay attention to you, is that 1 minute you're on your phone. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be, you were on your phone all night. I was on my phone for like 1 minute out of 3 hours. It was in my pocket the other 3 hours, 2 hours and
Yeah.
59 minutes. So I just don't even take it anymore.
Mm. Well, that has to be a definite reason why, as well, has helped you with the success. I mean, there's no doubt all the time you've saved and all the hijacking of your attention. Like, I can't not help you in so many ways over the years, man. Like,
Well,
that's
certainly,
awesome.
because a lot of the things that we do on our phones are not worth it, right? And
Yeah.
and there are days, there's once in a while, I should be reading, but I'll open up my Explore page, and that Explore page has been so diabolically programmed
Mm.
that 10 minutes later, I haven't blinked. I can feel my eyes are like drying up, because I haven't blinked, and I'm just like looking at things, and it beats me once in a while.
Mm.
But by saying to people on these podcasts, I'm now making public accountability that I don't do these things.
Mm.
And everything I've said is true. But now it ingrains it even deeper in me. That the next time I go out with my wife, I'll be like, yeah, I told those people on that podcast, and I'll leave it. And
Yeah.
and every time you do something, it makes it more likely you'll do it in the future. So there's that phrase that people use. Oh, I'm just going to get it out of my system. I'm going to go to Vegas one more time, get it out of my system. I'm going to go and binge drink one more time this weekend with the boys. Just got to get it out of my system. You don't get it out of your system by doing it. You ingrain
Mm.
it deeper in your system by doing it.
Yeah.
So whatever habit it is that you want to get rid of, and you think one more time, get it out of my system, you don't get it out of your system. It's ingrained deeper, and it's harder to get out of the system. If you flip it, when you start doing something like good, the more times you do that good thing, the more likely you are to do that good thing in the future. And
Mm.
that's another lesson from Atomic Habits. I got to give credit where credit is due. James Clear has a lot of great quotes, and he says, every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could just remember that before every decision you make in life, it will really help you.
Dude, thank you so much, man. This was awesome. I appreciate you coming on and sharing that wisdom with us, because you got a lot. You've done a lot, and yeah, it's a great book, man. It's a short read. I recommend everybody grab it. Dark Side of Discipline. It's really useful, man. It really
Thank you.
is. It's something that I feel like every entrepreneur or somebody, just the simple basic things that we think about or that we need. It's just easy to understand. It's easily digestible. It doesn't take forever. So I think
No,
it's a great book, man. Well done.
thank you. I really appreciate it. And I get really fired up about this stuff. So I appreciate it. And it's good questions, and that was fun.
Awesome, man. Where can everybody find you? We'll just drop that, and then we'll.
Yeah, so darksideofdiscipline.com for the book. It's also on Amazon. Hard copy, audiobook should be up soon. Ebook, of course. And then if somebody has a question, I am on Instagram. I do use it still. So Instagram, real Craig Ballantyne. And I look forward to hearing from everybody there. And because, the more questions people ask, the more ideas it gives me for future content.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.